All right, so today we're reacting to some vintage Adam Neely. As we see here, I didn't even know it was vintage, but I just realized it's from 6 years ago. It's called Offbeat Triplets. As you know, or you may know, I don't know if you know yet, but I love triplets. But he calls it the unperformable rhythm, and I do get this. I have not yet to see triplets on the offbeat. I don't think I've ever seen that. But I do know that it sounds a little tricky. It does sound a little tricky. As you can see here, Adam Neely does not have hair. So this is real vintage. And I'm thinking this is gonna be a very interesting video, as most of his videos are.
So how do you play this rhythm? It's a lot.
I'm sorry guys. I just never really seen it. It just kind of freaked me out. Sorry.
A lot trickier than it might seem.
Wow. Wait, actually, I never really imagined this. Oh, one. Wait, you're resting one and. Oh, wait. That's not that hard, is it? I don't think you're getting that perfectly. Perfect though. That's really hard to get perfect.
Winky guitar shredders can play 1,000,000 notes per second, completely out of time on Bet You Can't Play This. But I guarantee you, none of them could accurately play this rhythm in time.
Why would it be so hard? Really just quarter note triplets. Da 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 da. That's all that rhythm is.
Is it?
I mean, yeah, look, quarter note triplets. It's just, kind of like off center a little bit, but that's all it is.
Well, I have a question for you then. Where does the second quarter note triplet land in relationship to beat 2? In other words,
oh, I think this is where I start doing math. Okay, guys, I've solved these before. So basically, this is my piece of paper. All right, it's gonna be kind of embarrassing if I can't solve this. Okay, so you take the pi, right? The hypothetical pi, that's actually a rectangle. And you split it in 3. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna solve this. Is that how I'm just gonna let him answer the question. Why is this so hard?
If you're going to start playing from the second quarter note triplet, when exactly would you start playing?
5 hours later.
After a couple hours, I decided I'm gonna give up on doing the math.
In other words, if you're going to start playing from the second quarter note triplet, when exactly would you start playing?
Actually,
Yeah, it's kind of tricky.
Me.
The actual consensus in a drum forum about this very rhythm was that it's one of those things that you can't think about too much.
Yeah.
That's not really helpful. And it's not like this rhythm just does not occur out in the real world. It occurs in this salsa tune by Isaac Delgado, and it's actually also over the bar line, which adds another wrinkle to this whole thing. This rhythm and this recording came up in a discussion in the Music Engraving Tips Facebook group. There was a lot of hearty discussion about how to write the rhythm and how to perform the rhythm, including one comment which suggested, after a moment of trying out different solutions.
That sounded really cool. I want to say, first of all, this is just the intro. Wow, that sounded really cool. I feel like it's really one of those things that you just feel out. Like, listen.
This rhythm and this recording came up in a discussion in the Music Engraving Tips Facebook group. There was a lot of hearty discussion about how to write the rhythm and how to perform the rhythm, including one comment which suggested, after a moment of trying out different solutions, I came to the conclusion that the triplet is pretty much unperformable at a slow tempo. Well, that sounds like a challenge. Now, in most rhythms, we can start playing from any note within the pattern since we know its relationship to the underlying pulse. For example, in this rhythm, this note falls on the and of 1. We can't really do that with the offbeat quarter note triplets, so in order to sort of break them down, we're going to need to learn a little bit about music preparation, how music is written. There's a tremendous amount of subtle psychology used in how music is laid out on the page. Consider these two ways of writing the same piece of music. When performed, both examples produce the same piece of music. However, the second example is a lot more confusing for the performer. On a simple glance, you cannot definitively point to an eighth note like this one and say how it might relate to the underlying beat. In the first example, however, you can see that relation to the downbeat. This 16th note here acts as a reference placeholder to show you where the beat actually is. The reference shows the pulse. Even though you're not playing that 16th note since it's been tied over, you're feeling it, and the eye has a reference for that feeling. We don't have that sort of visual reference for the offbeat quarter note triplets. We can't visualize the rhythm as it relates to the pulse, so we can't feel the rhythm as it relates to the pulse.
All right, hold up there, because on regular quarter note triplets, you still can't see where beat 2 is. The quarter note triplet goes through it, and yet we don't consider it that difficult, so what gives?
Well, that is very true. So let's break down quarter note triplets so that we can see how they relate to the pulse. Now, by definition, 3 quarter note triplets take the same amount of time as 2 regular quarter notes. Just the same way that you can break down a quarter note into 2 eighth notes, you can break down a quarter note triplet into 2 eighth note triplets. So with that knowledge, quarter note triplets could be written like this. As tied groups of 2 eighth note triplets apiece, we now have a visual placeholder for where the beat lies, right here.
All right, so we'll just break down the quarter note triplet into groups of 2 eighth note triplets and then just move it over a beat, right? That will work.
Well, unfortunately not, because these groupings of eighth note triplets actually fall off the beat.
Oh, they do. Oh. Okay.
This grouping of eighth note triplets, for example, falls on the and of 2, so we still aren't able to visualize exactly where the pulse is. However, we are very close. Just the same way as you can think of a quarter note triplet as 2 eighth note triplets, you can think of an eighth note triplet as 2 16th note triplets. If we do that, we can break it down again. Now each quarter note triplet has been broken into 4 16th note triplets. And now we can visualize where beat 2 is.
That is not
right
comfortable
here.
to look
When we
at.
reduce down some of the tied 16th note triplets to eighth notes, the final rhythm looks like this. It looks fairly complicated, but now we have a framework for actually practicing it. From here, we can tease out a simpler version of the musical notation without actually changing the music itself. And this will be useful for when we go back and practice it. First, we're going to double all of the note values. When we do this, it's the same music, but it's just twice as slow, so we're going to make up for that by doubling the tempo. We can simplify it even further by slowing down all the note values by a factor of 3. This turns all of the eighth note triplets into quarter notes, and it turns the single quarter note rest into 3 quarter note rests. In order to make up for the slower note values, we're going to triple the tempo, and then when we reduce all of the rhythms down, the final product is going to look like this. So these...
There we go, something I can read. Wow, why do you think of that? I'm telling you, Adam Neely has a different brain, and he's always had a different brain. That's not... wow.
3 rhythms are the same, but look very different. We wrote, or prepared the music 3 different ways for different purposes. The first way conveys the idea of the music, offbeat quarter note triplets. The second way aids in performance to show where the beat lands. And the third way simplifies things so that it might be easier to conceptualize for practice.
Wow. That was a lot of work just to learn how to play a rhythm that I probably won't ever use. I mean, at least now I understand it.
That's great, and honestly, that's the most important thing. Conceptualizing it. Many people don't think it through for one reason or another. The practice of faking tricky music, just sort of approximating it, is widespread, especially among classical orchestral musicians. In June 2006, the Strad published a now infamous expose on the practice of faking difficult passages in professional orchestras and gave a somewhat tongue-in-cheek list of all the tips necessary in order to fake. Aim for the first of every grouping, triplets, quavers, and so on. It's amazing how often the fiddly notes in between will find themselves if you give them a sporting chance.
Whoa, I'm gonna stop you there. Chill out on ragging on the classical musicians. Just, last time you did that, you got in trouble.
All right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Might as well, play the rhythm that we've been talking about now anyway, just to prove that I haven't been making this whole thing up. What does the rhythm actually sound like? Well, there it is. That's the rhythm. The process here is the important part. Breaking down...
I don't know if it's just me, but I love triplets, but that was so deeply unsettling. Like, that was eerie. Like, I felt it just go down my spine when I heard like how the metronome related to to the triplet notes.
Well, there it is. That's the rhythm. The process here is the important part. Breaking down rhythms to their component parts and then understanding them in relationship to an underlying pulse. Even really hard rhythms like this one, the offbeat quarter note triplet, can be understood and performed, even at slow tempos.
Lord, that was a lot, but it was very interesting. And with that comes the conclusion that Adam Neely may be clinically insane, but either way, I still enjoyed this video and I hope you did too. So thank you for coming. Make sure you subscribe, you like, you check out the TikTok, check out the Instagram, and stick around some more. Just click the video on the screen. Bye.